Thank you for being here on New Year's Eve. I've always wanted to preach the New Year in. This might be a good time to do it. Woo! You couldn't take it. Okay, we're looking at Matthew chapter 1. Thank you for being here and being a part of this, and we're anxious for all that God wants. We started last Sunday night at the CSC on the Sunday night service. We dealt with this. We're looking at Matthew chapter 1 and the first Christmas narrative, actually, which goes from verse 18 down through the end of the chapter. And we began to develop that a little bit in relationship to the idea of fear. And I wanted to go back to that because there are some phenomenal ideas and concepts that he's giving us, a concept that he's given us that needs to be further developed. And then on top of that, a lot of you obviously weren't there. The Christmas narrative, of course, he gives the genealogy in verse 1 down through verse 17, which is all for the purpose of convincing us that Jesus has the right to claim messiahship. He has the lineage of King David. The plan has been laid out. God has orchestrated this for us and him, and therefore it is a validation of his kingship and the fact that he is the Messiah. Then Matthew begins to develop the four Christmas narratives, and one of them is given in chapter 1 and 3 are given in chapter 2. It's all in Matthew from the man's viewpoint, so what you're looking at is Joseph, how Joseph feels about this. If you want Mary's view and what she's experiencing through all of this, you go to Luke. So in Matthew, as he develops this, you go down to verse 19. It says, "Then Joseph, her husband, being a just man and not wanting to make her a public example, was minded to put her away secretly." And that's a little confusing because Matthew is called her husband, and the idea of a divorce, of course, is suggested in the verse itself. And if they are not married, why is he called her husband? And of course, that was all according to the custom of their day. And what happened was Joseph, of course, would have gone down to Mary's father and would have paid the 10 cows or whatever and would have set up a contract. And the minute the contract was signed with the parents and the marriage was put in place, they were called husband and wife. And they moved into a 1-year period of what is called betrothal, and that is given to you in verse 18, after his mother Mary was betrothed to Joseph, which was not like our engagement, wasn't the same as engagement. Betrothal was a 1-year period. It was a time of preparation and a time of probation. It was a time to get things ready. So Joseph is down at the house. He's remodeling the kitchen. He's building on a back room for the first child. He's painting a white picket fence. He's getting things ready. And Mary's in the garden giggling and talking about pots and pans and getting her hope chest ready. So all of this is preparation. They didn't have any communication with each other except through a friend of Joseph, and that's where the best man idea came from. So Joseph would write a note, give it to his friend, the best man, and he would go down and give the note to Mary. So they had very little contact with each other. Mary is gone for 3 months. She goes down to Elizabeth's house. Joseph doesn't probably think anything about that. He knows she's done that. It's a long time, but hey, the wedding, it's her cousin. They got a lot to talk about. So they're talking about the marriage and the future time of being together. They haven't had the wedding ceremony. That's coming at the end of the year, and then they'll move in together. And while Mary is down there for 3 months, she comes back, obviously, and when she comes back, she is giving physical evidence of her pregnancy. And, hey, Nazareth, small town, 5,000 people. You can just hear the rumors spread all over town. They look at Mary. No, it's a betrothal. She's not married. That is, not gone through the marriage ceremony yet. They begin to talk. Probably somebody says, "Oh, Joseph, that old dog." Yeah, because they would naturally blame Joseph. Joseph hears the rumor, probably refuses to believe it, goes to the best man, says, "Hey, check it out." He goes down, comes back, says, "Hey, There isn't any question about it. It's absolutely true. And Joseph is devastated. I don't know if you can feel what he would feel at that point, all the dreams, all the hopes, what's going to go on in town, all the stuff everybody's going to say. He obviously can't marry her. That's out of the question. If he marries her, he would literally be admitting and taking part in her sin, and he just can't do that. He just can't do that. He's a just man. By Jewish law, he could have her stoned to death, but he doesn't want to do that. He loves her. But hey, there's no answer to this. See, this is a mess. This is an absolute mess, and anything he does is going to be wrong. Ever been there? Wouldn't matter what you did, it's going to be the wrong thing. There's no way out of it. It's too complicated, too interwoven, too many things. There's just no way. There's no possibility. And Joseph is absolutely devastated with the whole thing. And he decides that the only thing he can do is just run away. Just give her a divorce, wipe his hands of it. And I don't know if you understand what that would mean to Mary and to the Christ child that would be born. That would mean, obviously, that Mary would be ostracized, pushed out of the tribe. She would have no family. She would be unwanted. She would have no one. She would be alone with no support. The Jesus that would be born would have no tribe. So all the prophecies would be untrue. So see, a lot hangs on this. And I never can, and I've suggested this to you before, I can't get over the fact that God would take his entire plan for redeeming a world and you and risk it on the decision of one man. See, I wouldn't have done that. Because if Joseph doesn't come through, hey, the whole plan is down the tube. But I'd like to say to you tonight, you are so significant in the plan of God that he has taken his plan, whatever that is for your world, and he's landed it on you. And there is a large part of the will of God for our day, in our town, in our place, in your world, that just will not. It's down the tube, folks, if you don't come through. Because God has placed this is not a God who just is out there and waves magic wands. This is a God who wants you to participate. And as he counted on Joseph, so he's counting on you. And as his plan rests upon the obedience and the response and the love and the openness of Joseph, so it rests upon you. You matter to the plan of God. Just let it sink in. You matter. Get in on this. This really matters. And so Joseph had decided the only thing I can do is just wipe my hands, divorce her. Hey, it'll all be what it is. It's the only thing I can do. He goes to bed that night, and an angel of the Lord shows up. And as you come down to verse 20, but while he thought about these things, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take to you Mary your wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit. And she will bring forth a son. You shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. I was captivated, and what we talked about last Sunday night, I was captivated by the idea of the fear. Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid. And I know, I'm scrawny. I got that. But I'm a scrapper. And and stubborn. And what are those other qualities you say about me? They're probably all true. Wow. And so I'd rear my shoulders back and say, hey, I'm not afraid. And probably you would do that too. But you and I both know I'm lying and you're lying. Because I am afraid. The word is actually the word phobia that's used there. And it's not, well, we're to fear God. Not this word. This is not the word for that. Fearing God has to do with reverence and awesomeness and wow, that kind of feel. This is terrorized. This is I can't function. This is, wow, I'm shut down. This is, I can't move kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff this is the word that was used when Jesus, the waves are 8 feet tall and they're coming into the boat and the disciples are bailing water out of the boat like mad because they're going down. And these are experienced fishermen and it's the midnight hour. They've been battling this thing, trying to keep that ship alive, ship right for all this time. And they're just, they aren't going to make it and they're scared to death. And then all of a sudden out there, the storm clouds part enough for the moon to shine through. And there's this ghostly figure that's leaping from one storm wave to another. And it uses this word. They were terrorized. That's Joseph's situation. He's terrorized. His life is down the tubes. It can't work out. His hopes and dreams are gone. He counted on, and it isn't gonna, and everything, and he didn't get the breaks, and what is he gonna do? And life is against him, and it's all crumbling in on him, and he has no solution and no way out of it. He is scared to death. Scared. It's interesting that in the Christmas story, as you walk through it, it is just consistent that everybody in the Christmas story that's touched by Jesus ends up scared. I know, joy to the world, peace on earth, goodwill towards man, hallelujah. I got that. But folks, the truth of it is, when he walks into your life, it scares you to death. Because nothing's ever going to be the same. The wise men came to Jerusalem, and Herod was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. The whole city was, scared to death. Talk about the moms and dads, and the soldiers are marching down the main streets of Bethlehem, snatching up baby boys and slaughtering them. And think of what's going on in the hearts of moms and dads. And tell me they aren't afraid. Hey, wake Joseph up in the middle of the night. Hey, Joseph, don't worry about the pictures on the wall. Just get that woman up. Just pack a bag as fast as you can. Get that kid on a mule and head out of here. Why? Herod's trying to kill you. The king that doesn't even know your name is out to get you. And what's going on in their heart is in the midnight hours, they are running for their lives. And tell me they aren't afraid. See, everywhere you go in the Christmas story, you come back to this fear idea. There is this basic principle. And when Jesus walks into your life, it's a frightening thing. Now, what's so helpful in all of this is that as you look at the passage, which is verse 20, it says in the angel's message, he tells you how to handle this. It's also interesting that 75 times in the New Testament, we are told by God, do not be afraid. Which tells me, since it's that often, 75 times, since it's that often, that we are constantly getting ourselves into situations where we need to be told this. That we are constantly moving into situations where we are afraid, and there needs to come a comforting word from God himself that says, hey, cool it. It's going to be okay. And the passage that we're dealing with, he's not talking about the absence of fear. In other words, it's not, do not be afraid in the sense that just push fear aside. Well, what's going to take its place? He emphasizes that in the passage. That it's not the absence of fear, it's that fear is to be replaced with confidence, security, joy, and peace. So it isn't a positive thinking that dulls your fear. It isn't getting your nerves under control kind of stuff. It's an envelopment of your life by an overwhelming confidence that comes to you in a secure way that literally gives you the ability to look past your fear. And he says, Joseph, do not be afraid. Now, one reason why he told him that, and one way not to be afraid, he begins immediately in the passage. Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid. And it's the idea of remembering. He said, Joseph, remember who you are. Well, who are you, son of David? And why is that significant? Because he just walked through 42 generation genealogy. And Joseph is the last one in the genealogy, except Jesus. So he's remember your heritage. Remember who you are. Joseph, you are in a long line of people that have walked with God, have lived in the plan, have been a part of Israel and the covenant of Abraham. Come on, man. Straighten your shoulders. You're not just the average Joe on the street. Good night. Get it together, Joseph. Remember who you are. Remember, for instance, the protection of God. How consistently and constantly God literally put his arm around Abraham, put his arm around Isaac, put his arm around the Israelites, defeated the enemies of the Israelites. Think about King David, a scrawny teenager against the giant, and what did God do? Come on, God has just consistently protected your heritage, and you're in that lineage, man. Come on. Why should you be afraid? You're a son of David. And on top of that, we talked about the provision idea, that God not only protected, but God provided. I mean, quail out of the bush, come on. God has just poured himself out for your forefathers, and it's just protected and provided consistently, gave them a land, forevermore, manna from the sky, just consistently cared for them, and you're going to be here in this bed, quaking in your boots, forevermore. Get over it. You're a son of David. And God has significant plans because he's not only protected, he's not only provided, but he has planned. And you're in that plan. Now I know you're saying, that's good for Joseph. You're all raw. What does that have to do with me? Oh, friend, you're on the other side of this. See, Joseph was not to be afraid because of his ancestors. You're not to be afraid because you're the descendants of this. Don't you know who you are? You're a son of God. Don't you know that Jesus literally birthed you? And you're in this heritage. You're in this plan. You're in this lineage. Don't you understand who you are? You are a joint heir with Christ. And you're quaking in your boots forevermore. Get over it. What? Come on, straighten your shoulders. Get your head up high. See who you are. And if you ever experience in your heart and your mind who you really are, whew, that'll make a difference. And then you move to this other idea that we wanted to talk about tonight, which is really, really beautiful. It's not only don't be afraid, remember, but don't be afraid, reigning. God is reigning. Now look at what he does with this. in verse 20. Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take to you Mary, your wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit. Now, the whole idea of the passage is not a general thing. It is specific. In other words, God is specifically addressing the issue that Joseph is up against. Mary's with child. It's the marriage thing, man. He's scared to death. Why? Because the whole thing has fallen apart. And in the form, here's a handsome young man, here's a beautiful young woman, and all the plans and dreams are there for them to come together, start a new home, have children, and prosper. And there has been injected into the equation something that was totally out of the control of Joseph, that he had no say-so over, and it's just disrupted and ruined the whole picture. And God addresses that specific issue. This is not a general thing. Let peace abide in the world. This is right down to your particular situation and your particular need. And he assigns an answer to that problem. And a part of the answer to the problem, there's several parts, but one part to it is there are things going on that you don't know about. This is bigger. Oh, you got to get this. This is bigger than you know about. See, what you see is only a small amount of what's really there. See, what you understand is so finite, so small in comparison to what you need to understand. Have you found that true? See, I look at my situation and say, oh, no, oh. Thinking I know the situation. Folks, you don't even know the situation of your own life. Because God is doing things you don't know about. It isn't the way it looks. Things are not the way they appear. Because God is doing something beyond what you can see. And could you abandon your life to Him in such a overwhelming degree? Could you give yourself to Him and turn Him loose to bring out of what you see as a chaos, bring out of that His plan and will to redeem a world? Now you can waller in your little comprehension. Well, this is the way it looks. But it's not true. The way it looks is not the way it is. I know I'm going to have a hard time convincing you of this. God is going to have to move and touch your heart and convince you of that. It isn't the way it looks. There's more going on. God is doing things. And I promise you, if you live to be 95 like I am, you will look back and say, good night. I had no idea, no clue of what was happening. Which means, in the chaos of my life this moment, I can have absolute total confidence on a Jesus that I've placed my life into His hands, and He is moving in ways I do not know and pulling off things. So, well, my marriage is in a wreck. Wait a minute. There's things you don't know about. He's doing something bigger than what you know. Come on, Joseph. There's things happening. God is moving in a way you don't understand. Come on, put yourself in His shoes. Would you get a hold of that tonight? Now, if you don't trust him, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, if you're not his and not in the plan, I got it. But there is overwhelming confidence in the chaos. See, being his does not mean everything lines up and I begin to have a comprehension of all that's going on. See, being his means, whoa, I'm not in charge. And do you know what a delight it is not to be in charge? Oh, yeah, because the pressure's off. Well, it's my life. What if it wasn't? Then you wouldn't have to worry about it. That's where Joseph is. And God has come to Joseph in the form of this angel and said, hey, let me tell you, something is going on in your life that's far bigger than what you know. And if you will yield to it and allow God to work it out in your life, 2,000 years later, some wild preacher will be talking about you on a Saturday night. That's true with you. Could you give yourself to him and believe, hey, get over the fear, get over being limited to what you know, and allow him to take you in his plan. Jesus, we've all lived in fear. We know what that's like. It has paralyzed us. Could you release us tonight? And bring us into such confidence in your person. Oh God, could I remember the movement of the hand of God in the man called Jesus that has brought redemption to my life and has overshadowed me in his presence, that has brought birth to my heart and has made me a son. And there was phenomenal provision. And I'm not alone. And I'm up against a new year. And you have provision for this new year. And I don't need to tremble in my boots. I can square my shoulders and face a new year, remembering you have brought deliverance to my life. I want that for these. These are people. These are friends. And Lord, could we look at the chaos of where we are tonight and believe that you're doing something big. That there's things I don't know about. You are moving in ways I don't see. And Lord, I've been so limited to my understandings. And that has caused fear in my heart. But I'd like to give myself to you tonight for a new year. And trust your plan. Take me beyond what I see and what I understand. And bring me to your heart. So with our heads bowed, here we are. Facing another year. Well, preacher, if this next year is anything like last year, Oh, come on. Would you abandon yourself? Would you lose yourself to him? Would you go beyond what you can figure out and what you can manipulate and what you're able to get done and the limitations of who you are? And Would you submit to a Jesus who wants to do something phenomenal in your life? And as He draws you tonight, our altar's open for you to get over your fear, get out of your seat, and lose yourself to Him. You've been locked down by the fear of losing control, locked down by the fear of not having your own way, locked down. Would you leap in faith and give yourself to one who loves you? Moments of seeking. Moments of seeking. Be obedient.